Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard. And first of all, I want to say I'm not trying to flood your feed. I know that we have put out an episode this week. We also had another show on our feed to alert you to the presence of another show. And I'm not trying to flood it. But this one, I think, is one that any longtime fan of Beautiful Anonymous will be happy to have. I want to be very clear about something right from the start. We're going to play you a portion of an episode that you can find on Beautiful Anonymous Plus. Now, you know, for weeks now, since its launch, I've been plugging the fact that you can go to beautifulanonymous.com and sign up for this bonus content service. I need you to know from the bottom of my heart, I'm not putting this out here to try to bait you into signing up. If you want to sign up, I'm appreciative. If you're not interested in it or you're not in a place where financially it makes sense, I'm not mad at you, and I'm not trying to sit here and hook you into it. We are going to give you the first portion of a call that lives on Beautiful Anonymous Plus. The people who have Beautiful Anonymous Plus can hear a lot more and enjoy it. But if I'm being totally honest, this is a caller who means a lot to our fan base. It's a caller who has a miraculous story that's still unfolding. And I would be truly a dirtbag if I didn't allow the entire community to celebrate some monumental news in relation to this caller. So please know, I'm not trying to go, here's a little piece of it, go sign up. I'm trying to say actually the exact inverse, which is this is too important to me to have fully behind the paywall. So paywall people, you will get a lot more conversation with Whirlpool Galaxy, as this community knows her, behind the paywall. But for everybody, there's a really amazing thing happening. If you don't remember the caller, Whirlpool Galaxy, go back and listen to the first call in which the caller talked about a tremendous loss that she suffered and how her life moving forward came to take on a totally different form than before that loss. You can go listen to our follow-up call. I think, I'm actually not sure if that one's on the feed or if that one is living on a hard drive somewhere, but if you remember the follow-up call, it was in person at the Earwolf Studios. We heard more of her story and more of the development of where she was at. And just this week, our caller posted online about some developments that you're going to hear made me truly emotional. And I think for a lot of you, you're going to have the same experience. So I'm not trying to use this as an advertisement for the paywall stuff. If anything, I'm dragging it out from behind the paywall because I have to reserve the right that in a community that means this much to me and where so many callers have become tent poles of that community, I have to reserve the right to go every once in a while. It can't be behind a paywall. Every once in a while, we need an update for this entire community to celebrate a miraculous person who's achieving some really miraculous things. So please do enjoy this one. If you want more, you know where to get it. If not, that's totally fine. But I also think more than anything, man, is it a good day to celebrate someone achieving dreams, and in particular, someone who I think we would all say deserves nothing but the best in life. Hello to everybody who supports Beautiful Anonymous. As you know, once a month, we reach out to a caller from the past of the show, and today, not only are we talking to one of the most beloved callers, I think, in the history of the show, someone who, I mean, everyone was blown away by your original call, and then the first in-person follow-up ever, which was sort of adorably awkward. Then everyone who attended Beautiful Anonymous was there for one of the funnest nights of my life, which was you and my Australian best friend caller had both yelled at me for not seeing Contact, and you and I were able to co-host a screening of Contact at Nighthawk Cinema in Brooklyn. And one of the best parts was the Q&A where I asked how many people here are not Beautiful Anonymous fans and just wanted to see Contact in the theater, and a solid third of the room did and still stuck around. And not only are all of those things true from the past, but everything that is happening in your present is blowing my mind. And I have to welcome back a caller that many people know as Whirlpool Galaxy from your original call. But your name is also your name's kind of out of the bag at this point too, because there's documentary about you that we have to talk about. So anyway.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for having me back, Chris. It's an honor to be here, of course.
Thank you for taking time out of your increasingly busy schedule. Should I just let the cat out of the bag, or do you want to air out the latest development?
Yeah, you just let it out of the bag. How about that?
Okay, because I'll tell you this. I was just downstairs with Hallie and Cal. I ate a quick dinner on my own because we're recording this at night on the East Coast. Hallie was getting her dinner and Cal's dinner ready, and I said, I'm going to do a follow-up with a past caller. And Hallie said, well, who's the caller? And I said, well, it's the original caller's Whirlpool Galaxy. And I will tell you full disclosure, my wife, who has a huge heart, said, that's the call that the woman lost her family? And immediately, and I was like, yeah. And my wife was like, I still think about that one, and it still crushes me. And I was like, but do you remember how she was studying astrophysics? My wife was like, yeah. And I was like, Hallie, she got fucking hired by NASA. And I started crying. I'm like, she's fucking working on the James Webb Telescope. And me and my wife, 5 minutes ago, both got choked up. It's unbelievable. And sorry to curse, but I'm from New Jersey, so I curse when I'm excited. You posted it on Twitter the other day, and my jaw was on the goddamn floor. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm still in shock from it. And I cried too when I got the email. And my childhood best friends have been crying for days in a row. They cried more than me for sure. So
it's really, really beautiful and also completely nuts. And I'm sure you think about that every day.
No, that's my exact reaction. Yeah, I'm in shock and just also so excited. And honestly can't believe it still. Doesn't feel real at all yet. I don't start until September, so I have some time for it to sink in. But yeah, I'm so excited.
And are you allowed to say exactly what you'll be doing? I don't know if NASA's like the CIA, if you have to keep everything secret.
No, I can tell. I did actually check to make sure because I have a mentor there, and I was like, "Am I allowed to talk about this publicly?" Yeah, so I'll just be just an astrophysicist there. My job will be to do
just an astrophysicist at NASA. This is how you think.
Yeah, they technically hired me to do research. So, for my job application, I wrote this 15-page proposal saying, if you hire me, this is the science I'll get done while I'm there. And they basically said, okay, yep, you're hired. Just come and do that science. But I also want to get involved in a lot of different aspects there. For example, I'll be part of the James Webb Space Telescope team, but I also want to get involved with future missions that are being planned, and then also probably science communication as well. So I'm going to try to, get involved with a lot of things while I'm there.
It also seems like a particularly exciting time to be hired by NASA because all of a sudden the space race is kind of back on.
It really is. Yeah, no, with the James Webb Space Telescope, obviously that's completely revolutionizing the entire field of astronomy. And then also, NASA is planning to go back to the moon very soon with the Artemis mission and everything. So it's really a great time to be in, to work at NASA and to just be involved in astronomy and space endeavors for sure.
And is Artemis going to be a manned mission?
Yeah. There will be, NASA is planning a manned mission to the moon, and they've already selected the first candidates who will go. So the first woman and the first person of color will land on the moon, I think, pretty soon here in the next decade for sure. I'm not sure exactly what year, but yeah.
And theoretically, if things go well, and they don't catch you stealing snacks from the break room or whatever. You might be in that control room. This is not outside of the realm of possibility that you will be on site, employed by NASA as they are landing the first woman on the moon. Yeah, technically my job is only for 3 years, but they often hire people after they do what I'm doing is technically called a postdoctoral fellowship. And they do often hire people after their postdoctoral fellowships. And that's the goal, is for me to get hired and stay there permanently until, forever. It's the craziest story. It's the craziest story that I've ever heard in real life. It's the craziest thing. And look, I'll put you on the spot, and maybe you're not supposed, maybe you have to at this point be like, we're not even going there. But I have talked to you in the past about, like, is the goal to eventually be an astronaut? And I believe you've told me, like, obviously it's in the back of my mind as a fantasy, but the more in it, you are someone who your fantasies keep becoming reality. So is this, have you thought about the fact that you are now a step closer to being in a rocket ship?
Definitely. Yeah, I think I told you before that, 18,000 people applied to be astronauts. These are all people who are qualified. And so I'm now one of those people that's qualified to apply. But they only select, around 8 to 12. Actually, I think it's more like 12.
Out of 18,000.
Yes. And so I will be applying the next time there's a call for astronauts. I'm now qualified, so I'll definitely apply. Because they do prefer to hire like military folks, like, for example, test pilots. So I'll be going the science route. Obviously, I'll be applying as a scientist, but to make myself a little bit more competitive, I've actually been getting my private pilot's license because they just like to see, they like pilots for obvious reasons. And so I'm about to finish my private pilot's license. So that'll make me a little bit more competitive, but still it's 18,000 people that are extremely qualified. So we'll see.
But I do love that. I feel like when I asked you around Beautiful Cononymous, it was kind of like, well, yeah, that's a fantasy. And now you're like, no, I'm actively applying and I'm starting to build out the resume to put myself in the mix. Like, this is real. This is real.
Yeah, I'll frame my rejection letter. Let's say that, because I definitely don't think I'm going to get selected the first time, but I'm just going to keep applying until I'm too old to apply anymore, I guess.
How often can you apply?
They typically have calls about every 4 years. Maybe with these Artemis missions coming up, maybe they'll be more frequent, hopefully, and they'll be hiring more people. But and I have met a couple of astronauts over the past few years and talked with them about the process. But it's still, how do you set yourself apart from those 18,000 people on paper alone? That's really hard to do. So I don't know.
So you straight up now are at a point where it's not that weird for you to just shoot the breeze with an astronaut.
No, it's still weird, but there's just been, people have like presented opportunities. They're like, it's mostly because of the documentary where they're like, do you want to meet an astronaut? And I'm like, of course I do. And so people have just made that happen for me. It's terrifying, but amazing. It's been, amazing getting to meet them.
Now, you mentioned the documentary. It's really incredible. They're also going to have to reshoot the ending now or do a sequel, obviously. Yeah. But do you want to tell people about it and where they can find it? And I will tell everybody. It's beautiful. And even just on the website, you can already go and watch a trailer that your breath will be taken away. And it must have been so hard to film and dive back into so much stuff, but also it's a really incredible film.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's always scary when I hear about people watching it, but that's helpful to hear. But yeah, we finished filming a bit ago, but the documentary was like completely finished in January of 2023. So it's been just over a year now. And we've been doing the film festival circuit. I think we've gotten into somewhere between 10 and 12 film festivals and have had other types of screenings. I think total of like 24 different showings this past year alone. So that's been kind of crazy. And now we're just looking for entertainment distribution, which would be, to try to get it on a streaming service like Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. But I think the director would want to film some type of follow-up, because after people watch the film, they always want to be like, is she okay? They just want to make sure that I'm okay, And so I think there probably will be, maybe like a 30-minute follow-up or something. That's an idea that's been thrown around.
I mean, they have to. They have to at this point. It's unbelievable. Also, I'm happy to say, too, when you tweeted about being hired, I was one of the first people to retweet it. And then the next time I went back and looked, there were thousands and thousands. Like, it went viral for real everywhere.
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not expect that. I just went to bed and then woke up the next day and there was like tens of thousands of likes or something. It was crazy.
Really nuts. Really nuts.
Yeah.
How did the filmmakers come across your story?
So the director, she used to work at NBC News for her whole career and Dateline NBC and stuff. So she has a lot of experience there, but she got tired of doing stories about crime. And so she moved to Bend, Oregon, and started her own independent filmmaking business. And she was having coffee with a friend one day, and that friend happened to be my high school cheerleading coach. And so my coach from high school told her my life story. And at this point, it was, before I even talked to you, this was when I was still an undergrad, and it was very, the tragedy had just happened. But then, they had a coffee a few years later, and she asked for an update on me and heard that I was in graduate school. And that's when she decided she wanted to make the film. And so our mutual friend put us in contact. But it took me quite a while to say yes. Honestly, I was very hesitant to just be like, yeah, sure, make a movie about my tragic life. So it took a while to say yes. But, I asked her the reason why she wanted to make the film. And she said that she felt like people who were experiencing difficult times could watch the film and get through their own difficult times. And I've heard people say that over the years, that seeing how I've got through, everything that I've been through has helped them get through what they're going through. And so I felt like our goals aligned there. And, 6 years later, or however long it's been since we started filming, we're now like best friends. So I don't regret it at all, but it did take me a while to say yes. Yeah.
Because everybody knows there are stories of people who feel like they've been exploited or misrepresented or had things sensationalized. So to hear that you feel safe and some sense of pride and ownership in it is a huge relief, because that's an awful feeling when it goes the other way. So I'm very, very happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. You probably know more than anybody how that kind of thing happens. Yeah.
Not more than anybody, but I've definitely had some moments where it's like, that's half of what I said. That's not cool. Like, I've lived through that, and it's not the best. So I'm as someone who feels so lucky that you've become like this podcast, that you became part of the fabric of that. I do feel some very unearned sense of protectiveness over you. So I'm glad to hear that these people aren't messing with you, because I'd have to step in personally and say, the last thing this world needs is another manipulative documentarian.
No, you've earned it, actually. Telling my story here where I felt safe with you in particular, and then being anonymous at first, really helped me to tell my story in a very public way. And to, I read every Facebook comment. So I know, the community of Beautiful Anonymous really is one of the reasons I felt confident that I could share my story with the world and it would maybe be received well, because I felt so welcomed into this community. And so you did earn a big part of that, definitely. So don't sell yourself
very
short.
Very protective. I also wanted to run this past you. Contact. Pretty good flick.
Right? I told you.
Really good. And seeing it up on the big screen, that was the way to do it. And I also was watching it. I was like, well, of course this is like your favorite movie. Of course. It's everything about it, both in content and emotion. I'm like, of course.
Exactly.
I was a fool to skip this one as long as I did.
The situation's been rectified, though. You've seen it now, so.
I have. And it was a hell of a way to see it. And I will never forget laughing so hard as you and I did a Q&A, because just for anybody who was not at Beautiful Anonymous, which was a really special weekend in my life, and that I feel like a lot of the people there felt similar. I don't know if we'll ever do it again, because it was so much work, but it was so cool. But the best part was it was the kickoff event. And then, at the end, you and I came up and they handed us microphones. And I said, first things first is, does everybody know what Beautiful Anonymous is? And a bunch of people went, no. And I said, how many of you just wanted to see Contact? And a decent chunk of people in that room said it. And I said, well, it ties into this podcast. And we were lucky the theater allowed us to screen this. But we're going to do a Q&A now that's going to reference a podcast episode. So totally understandable. If you're not a fan of the podcast, you can just split. And most of those people did, but I would say maybe a quarter of them just stuck around for a Q&A out of context, and some of them even asked questions, which was so funny to me. So funny. There were some people that just kind of wanted, if I remember right, were like asking you just straight up astrophysics questions.
Yeah.
And we're like, I don't really know what the deal is with you two and this whole relationship, but as far as the science behind this aspect, and you were like, oh yeah, no, great question, and just talked about astrophysics with these people, and it was so funny.
Yeah, that was, I still think about that a lot. That was very funny.
People are weird, man. People are cool and weird.
Uh-huh.
What an absolute joy to see where you're at. And I think you only put that tweet up 2 or 3 days ago. So this is relatively new news for you, let alone having announced it for me. And how does it make you feel to know that my wife and I shared a moment of quiet, happy tears when I was able to be like, she did it. Like, she went and did it.
Oh, that I feel very honored by that, honestly. And I know a lot of people are rooting for me, and that's, something I think about when I'm, having a hard day or something. I'll think about, I know there's a lot of people rooting for me, and, obviously people like you and your wife. So that's a huge honor to me, honestly. And thank you.